good afternoon, everybody. I'm Caroline Stevens. I'm the presenter of a YouTube channel called Stepping Stones to Awareness. You've heard earlier on, I've interviewed Mark, I've interviewed Liz, and I've interviewed John Kitson on my Right Unity show as well, which is also on the internet. So, the state of politics today. I'm a committed Brexiteer, and who is actually in charge of our government? Who is actually running this country?
The bankers.
I want one name.
Rothschild.
Pardon?
Rothschild.
No, that's not the name I was looking for. Ollie Robbins. Right, introduce you to Ollie Robbins. Here he is. This is Ollie Robbins. Okay? He's got an EU badge. He's a committed Europhile. He works directly with Theresa May. And he is in charge. Can you imagine all our lives, pretty much, this guy has almost total control of. The Tory party. By all accounts, the leader of the Tory party is chosen by a lady called Serena Rothschild. So there we have, got the name in there somewhere. What is the political system actually all about? I mean, I've stood for Parliament. We have a situation in the world where 1% govern the 99%. Would you agree? 1%. Most of the world's wealth is in those people's hands, okay? Whether you like to call them Illuminati, the Bilderbergers, the 300 Club, whoever. So, just imagine I'm one of those 1%ers. I'm probably going to be very good friends with this guy, aren't I? Because he controls this country, pretty much. Him and a sort of a cohort of individuals in the civil service. Remember, 90% of the civil servants actually voted to stay in the EU. 80% of our MPs voted to stay in the EU. It's about 80%. So, and even then, when you look at the 20% who say they voted for Brexit, they actually want to cherry pick Brexit. They won't, not one of them is really prepared to talk about military unification. So let's just picture it then. I'm one of the 1%, and I'm facing the 99%. And what do I want from you? What do you think I actually want from you? What was that, sorry, Liz?
Control.
Control. I want to control you. You're a bit of an inconvenience, really. You might chauffeur drive my car. You might do the plumbing in my house, one of my many mansions. You might teach my children how to swim. But do I need 99 of you? Do I? No, I don't. So, how am I going to sort you out, if you like? I'm going to give you, put you into groups, because you always divide and conquer, don't you? Otherwise, if you really knew what I'm thinking about you, you'd want to come and knock on my door and take me away to prison. So I'm going to divide you. So I was looking at the papers, because we're divided by our media, yet they're run by the same people. Isn't that bizarre? So we think, oh, I've got friends who say, oh, how could you read The Guardian, Caroline? I said, well, there's some interesting points in The Guardian, but it's a left-wing paper. If you forget these labels, and this is what I'm asking you to do today, when you go away and just think, actually, we've been controlled, we're put in boxes. And I don't know if you, like me, but I come from Yorkshire, and no one sticks me in a box, okay? So there's an article in the paper yesterday. The truth is out there, 60% in the UK believes in conspiracy theories. Now, conspiracy theories, that's the truth, isn't it? It's the fake news we get on the BBC and Sky News. So, Lenin once said, and we've talked a lot about Russia, haven't we, a few weeks and months, about the poisonings and sort of poking the Russian bear. But Lenin once said, the best way to govern is to actually, with the controlled opposition, to actually lead that controlled opposition yourself. So basically, the controlled opposition is all around. We just don't realise it. So, for example, if you're reading The Guardian, is there anybody here that occasionally reads The Guardian?
No.
Nobody? Okay, somebody's going to volunteer. Mick is going to be my willing accomplice. What colour would you like? Would you like green? Would you like red? Or would you like yellow? Which colour?
Yellow, please.
Right, if you just hold it like that. Is there anybody that reads the Times or the Telegraph? Occasionally. I think you'd like a blue cover. You just hold it like that, please. Is there anybody that reads the Daily Express, especially when they were voting for Brexit? Any supporting Brexit? Anybody read the Daily Express? Thank you, James. Right, you pulled that one. Purple. You get the idea yet?
Yeah.
Is there anybody really who's concerned about the environment? I think Janet's concerned about the environment.
Yeah, that's the new road, sorry, I don't go there.
Somebody must be concerned about the environment and the plastic that's in the seas.
I am.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you see, getting it now. Green. And who's worried about employment rights and maternity rights? Liz. Right, okay. So can you see, I have split you up already. And you will then, as leaders of your little parties, you will then bring similarly like-minded people to you. Okay? So what's inside those folders? Just the first cover, no, the other way. That's why I specifically offered, yeah, at the back. What is the word at the back? Open the cover. People. People. So basically, I've grouped you, but you are all people with pretty similar needs and wants. Would you not agree? What do we need? What do we want? What do we actually need, Keith?
Oh, sorry.
What do we need as people?
Clean water, clean air.
Thank you. Remember at school, that triangle.
Sunlight.
Remember that we need shelter, but most of all, we actually need water. And do you know something? All we're concerned about on Facebook, that all I'm seeing at the moment is Batten and Farage and what's happening and why haven't we got freedom of speech? What do we actually need most of all is water, food and shelter. And by 2028, the world's most scarce commodity will be what, John? Water. Okay. So we're focusing in the wrong direction. We've been focusing on Brexit, sure, that should bind us together. It should bind 17.4 million people together. Because this guy doesn't care about us. He doesn't care probably about the Remainers either. He wants a federal state with his cohort of other people. So, we've had Godfrey Bloom actually this morning talking about military unification. Ask yourself this, why is it that whether your MP was voted for Remain or for Leave, why did your MP not table something in Parliament to say we must talk about military unification? Why didn't they do that? I thought they were for Brexit. We have written, myself and a couple of others, we launched the Pesco Gate campaign October last year. And we had a network, I've got a network of people, and we got all the MPs pretty much covered. They got a letter from us, or from one of my colleagues, And we wrote to them and said, is this true? What are you going to do about it? Well, it got them by surprise actually last October. And they actually started answering truthfully. And then we then started getting a standard template letter from these MPs, which had obviously come from HQ. So once you're on their case, they have to basically cover their tracks. So fast forward 13 months. Remember, a year ago, there was Julian Thompson, Brigadier Julian Thompson, Colonel Richard Kemp, two very, very famous living military people, and I saw them on a platform, and they basically said they were scared, scared that our government was going to give away our military to Brussels. There were famous people in the audience. I approached those famous people afterwards. I said, will you support us? We need to bring awareness. Oh no, can't do that. Friends with the Tory party. Sorry, no, can't do that. Really? So, you see, with all these colours, what are these politicians doing?
Dividing us.
They're dividing us, and they're putting their party before the people. There's something for you to think about. I was once a member of a political party, and now I realise, after listening to all those talks today, the people need to unite, and the people will never unite behind a colour. I can guarantee. It has not worked. There's a saying, isn't there? If you do what you've always done, you get what you've always got. So when I look at Brexit, I think, well, Brexit, I've said for 2 years now, especially with Theresa May being a Remainer, I tried to be a bit optimistic at first, but with her being a Remainer and seeing the shenanigans going on behind closed doors, I've been keeping a watch on Parliament throughout. For example, the Fishing Committee. I've not seen one politician, whether they're actually in Parliament or not, comment on the fact that the evidence that was taken for the Fishing Committee was actually collated mainly by, well, one of the people who gave evidence was a Remain politician's assistant. Just after the referendum, he'd got a job at the Ports Authority. Then suddenly he's giving advice and evidence to the government. But hang on, he was an MP's assistant prior to giving the advice. So you see how people are being put in place to give the advice. I wrote to the MP, do you think he acknowledged the fact that they were taking advice from obvious Remainers, obviously with a vested interest? And no, they're all in it together. Let's be under no illusions that none of these politicians are our friends. It's just a pantomime. And, you know, there's so much energy, and a lot of it's about taking people's energy and wearing them down. They're taking your energy and saying, oh, well, if we get Morgan, if we get Boris Johnson, come on, you are what you produce, the fruits of your labour is what it's about. Look at what happened with Boris Johnson just before the referendum. Yes, he stood for Brexit, but he was supportive of the EU accepting Turkey into its fold. And there's many, many other examples I can give you about these politicians. I mean, for example, the Canadian trade deal. I keep talking about it now. No one else is talking about it, apart from the people who want it. The Moggs of this world, the Campbell-Bannermans of this world. They all want this say no to TTIP type deal. The Canadian trade deal is not very much different to TTIP. TTIP, before the general election, people were in the streets in their millions in Europe. They didn't want TTIP. Why didn't they want TTIP? Anybody remember why they didn't want TTIP?
Political connections.
Because the corporations got
Corporations!
more control than the government, which is another corporation.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we lead on to the corruption. So we've got globalists. They lobby the governments. They lobby the EU. It's a government. It's a charter. So basically, we'll end up with our water being sold, our NHS being sold. We won't have anything left, and we'll have more unemployment. Trade is, trade deals are between person to person, aren't they? Why does the government have to get involved in these trade deals? Because it's never for our benefit, is it?
Rothschild's buying all the roads, so he can charge tolls.
Yeah, but it's all been going through corporations. If you go back to Genesis 26 to 28, man and woman have got domination over the world, not corporations. I throw that at them all the time.
Now, we talk about corruption, because this is what we need to focus on. Corruption and maladministration, whatever you want to call it. Look at the vested interests of the people that govern you, for starters. The financial interests. Nobody looks at that. We were looking, weren't we, Dave and Mick, we drove here today, and I saw that Theresa May was giving some sort of reward to John Hales, and they reckon it's just to get us this bill through Parliament. So I looked at his financial interests. I mean, MPs get, what, £70,000 a year. So he's getting paid something like $20,000 from further education establishment for the next year for about 200 hours work. And so it goes on. They're getting paid thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, each of them, for doing maybe 80 hours of work for £20,000. Where can you get that sort of money from?
Corruption.
So people say, right, okay, so you talk about the Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers, the Finchley Roads. Who does not know about Finchley Road? Lots of people. Apart from the people in this room, there are so many people that will not talk about Finchley Road. The shell companies. They're companies that don't really exist. They don't necessarily have to have proper audited accounts. I've interviewed a guy called Gordon Bowden on many occasions now. He doesn't live too far from here. And he is methodical. He can work out which people in the public eye have got shell companies. So why do you think a lot of our politicians, in fact, I don't think any of our politicians are talking about it. Why do you think that might be then?
Because they're pissing in the same pot.
All of them. It doesn't matter what colour. And, we have revealed some names on stepping stones to awareness already. I could tell you lots more people as well. Entertainment industry, they're all in it together. Okay? And it's no good people saying on Facebook, oh, well, they pay their taxes. Who's to say that this money came legitimately in the first place? So the money is taken illegitimately and then handed a bit back to the government.
Most of it is from our taxes, actually.
And council tax,
Absolutely.
is pulling 28 billion out of the economy. Yeah. It's official.
Yeah.
So don't get it talked about.
So we've got all these cases of corruption and the MPs go quiet. And then we've got the court cases, we've got the secret courts. We've got the secret courts which give the authority for the judges to actually physically remove permanently children from the care of their parents. We've got a court case on at the moment at the High Court. Is it the High Court, Janet?
Oh yes, no, Crown Court.
Crown Court in
Yes,
Southwark.
yeah.
And this is a chap called David Noakes, another person that I've interviewed on Stepping Stones to Awareness. David Noakes has seemingly, or this is what they reckon, flouted the 1939 Cancer Act. You see what happens with the judicial system, the parliamentary system, is they impose their will on us. And we're the 99%. Who's the wimp here? Are we wimps? We must be, mustn't we?
And then they have the cheeky court to tell you that it's the will of the people that they're imposing on us.
Yes, they try to convince us, like the Canadian trade deal. Oh, it's going to be good. No, it's not going to be good for these 99%. It's the good for the globalists. Well, the 1939 Cancer Act ensures that people cannot go around saying, we can cure your cancer for you. And if you think you're going to get away with that, then you're very much mistaken. So David Noakes, he was distributing something called CMAF, and it's GCMAF, and it's naturally forming in the body, and he was distributing it. Well, the big pharma didn't like that. Now remember, we talk about conflict of interest, you know, Big Pharma, 2 chief executives of Big Pharma sit on the Medical Research Council. Our membership of the EU makes the clinical trials very expensive. When it's looking at cancer, that's another aspect, corruption. So David Noakes has had to go to court now because Big Pharma don't like what he's been doing. And this week, it culminated yesterday, and there's 2 more days, I think, to come. But I just put it here. The judge asked Noakes if it was worth breaking the law to produce and distribute CMAF. David's response was, was it worth breaking the law to save lives? Absolutely. It's like saying he would rather a person die than be treated. So we have to expose the New World agenda. You know, we're Agenda 2021, Agenda 2030, and our MPs are complicit in this. We talk about fracking. You know, people are for it, for against it. But the Infrastructure Act of 2015, which got the Queen's approval, no one talks about the Infrastructure Act. You'll find no politician will talk about the Infrastructure Act. Politician either in Parliament or wanting to get into Parliament. This allows public land to be sold off for housing to private corporations. You know, the Infrastructure Commission is actually an NGO, it's not a government body. I think Adonis was the chief executive. You know, you've got your HS2, it all comes under the Infrastructure Act. The government is shafting us, basically, for want of a better expression. And until we realise this, until we stop wasting our time and saying, is it Mogg, is it May, is it Johnson? Well, until they start sharing out their monies, in fact, they should, when they go into Parliament, they should not be having any financial vested interests elsewhere at all, if they were true to form. I mean, for some of them, the MP's salary is worth foregoing just to get the power, pull the levers. 650 people are in charge of us. But no, it's much, much more than that. Because we talk about trade deals, which could be made between country to country tomorrow. Should have been made 2.5 years ago. We voted to leave 2.5 years ago. Why was it that the reports came back to me that the Brexit department a year ago did nothing? But nobody would believe me. They said, oh, because until they see it with their own eyes, people don't believe you. When we sign up for our military over to Brussels, will the people believe us then? Is it too late? What can we do? You know, what really did add credibility to our cause was the fact that those guys actually landed in Bosnia with the EU logos on their arms. It's like people have to see it to believe it.
Our MP denied. I wrote to you.
Well, they're now backtracking. they had a conference, I think David Davis, Andrew Rosendale, and I think possibly Liam Fox. They were in Canada at the end of last week in Halifax, and now they're backtracking, now saying, oh yeah, NATO all the way. Well, we've heard from Godfrey earlier on today about NATO being all the way. So what we've got to do is look for solutions. You know, if you want to be a member of a political party, that's not a problem. That's you. You're quite entitled to do that. But we're not going to unite behind a label because of the controlled opposition. There will always be people in various parties that will not cover the likes of Finchley Road because they have shell companies in South Africa, for example. As I say, people on the sex offenders register, they've got, and you know, you can't track this information down because it's not in the public domain. People have, MPs have got green energy shares, and so it just alters your mindset, doesn't it? If you think about it, you put yourself in my 1% Bilderberg mode. What do I care about you? I need a nurse, I need one nurse, and as I say, I need the chauffeur and I need the plumber. I don't need you. I've got enough money, I can do what I want. So the key is to pull together, to start talking to people in the supermarkets, to watch these court cases with great interest, share it all out. Remember the Brexit MPs? They supported Stella Creasy's bill for internet censorship. So it's all our MPs that don't want the sharing stuff, not just the EU. They're all in it together. And on that note, I'd like to thank you so much for coming today, and I hope you found it worthwhile.